Hello and welcome to 5 Year Club video number 215, Morning Edition. With my morning voice edition. I thought I'd get ahead of the video today and get this out of the way. We're on book 6 of the Japanese Family Storehouse, or The Millionaire's Gospel Modernized, translated from the Nippon Itagura of Ihara Saikaku, with an introduction and notes by G.W. Sargent, originally published 333 years ago and translated for us in 1959. I believe only one edition of this book was ever produced, at least. This is the first edition, and that's the only one I've ever seen. Today's story is Sprigs of Holly from a Money Tree. Sweet, so that money tree we've been hearing about, we're going to learn how to grow it today. Let's hope. King Wen of China, they say, had a garden 70 leagues square. But in viewing his forests of trees and shrubs, he could have felt no more pleasure than a man who looks at a holly bush in a spare 2-yard plot and thinks of it as his private estate. In the large port of Tsuruga, in Echizen province, there lived a certain Toshigashia. He was a maker of bean paste and soy sauce, a man of great wealth who had lived his life in this locality, starting as a very small tradesman and gradually rising to his present prosperity. He was a shrewd businessman, and the foundations of his success were laid early in the following manner. For daily sales of bean paste to customers from outside the town, it was usual for each dealer to provide, at considerable expense, a small wooden pails or straw bags. Toshigashia, however, had an original idea, and one year, when the Bond Festival was over and each family had taken down its array of offerings to the departed spirits, he went to a river bank where the castaway peaches and persimmons were floating by in the shallows, and fished out all the lotus leaves which had been used as offering plates. For the whole of the next year, he made use of these as wrappers for his small sales of bean paste. That doesn't sound sanitary. Others copied his ingenious device, and now there is not a province in the land where bean paste is not sold in lotus leaf wrappers. When, in due time, Toshigashia, I don't know how to pronounce that, bought himself a house with a large garden, the trees he planted were chosen as much for what they bore as how they looked. As hedgerows, he grew tea bushes and medicinal boxthorn. He tore up flowering lesbediza by the roots, and in places where there had once been windmill blossoms, he planted rows of green pea. Both were attractive climbing plants, but he preferred the one with a practical advantage. He even found a use for discarded jellyfish preserving tubs by growing water pepper in them. Nothing the eye could see was there for any idle purpose. A holly sprig he had once planted, and which grew in time into a large bush, became the symbol of his house, and everyone knew it as the trademark of Toshigashia. On the night of Setsubun, he picked bunches of this to hang over his doors and windows, and although a spray was only a zenny to buy, he estimated that the total savings in a lifetime would be considerable. Alright, so now we have a picture. Toshigashia shows his presents, which you can't really see, but oh well. He's showing some presents. It's storybook time. We show these pictures. Until his fortune reached 13,000 ryo in gold, he continued to live in an unpretentious house roofed with wooden shingles. From the time a suitable bride was found for his son and heir, however, things began to change. The go-between and the mistress of the house agreed, behind the master's back, that for the betrothal presents, fashionable clothes, and rolls of silk should be ordered from Kyoto, and that enough barrels of sake should be sent to the bride's home to ensure that the neighbors were given no excuse for laughing at them. 25 porters were employed to carry the sake, each with a barrel across his shoulders, but the only betrothal presents the mistress and her son showed to the old master were 2 light sake casks a pair of salted bream, and a silver chogan. He pulled a long face even at this, and said that instead of the silver chogan, they should send the equivalent in copper, 3,000 zenny, which would increase the bulk and look better. In matters of etiquette like this, he had no conception of what was expected. During his whole life of more than 60 years, he had no time for anything outside the honest prosecution of his trade. The sending of the betrothal presents was the first step to a more luxurious mode of life. The next was when the son conceived a plan for rebuilding the main section of the house. His father would not listen to him, but he canvassed support from kindly disposed people in his ward, and even enlisted the influence of his father's temple-going group, sworn companions unto death and the hereafter, and of the abbot of the family temple. At length he had his way, and set to the work of construction. After he built up a splendid, lofty roof mansion in place where the old house had stood, with every detail arranged to his taste, he had the whole place scrubbed and polished daily, so that it glistened as never before. But the woodcutters from the hills and the neighboring farms no longer dared enter such a place, and the trade suddenly came to a standstill. Faced with the prospect of throwing away his stalks of bean paste and emptying his pails of soy sauce into the river, the young Toshigoshiya sent members of traveling salesmen out from the house to do business for him. But although his products were of as high quality as ever, people now claimed that their flavor had deteriorated, and even this device failed to improve his sales. In time, he changed his line of business, but there is always a risk in trying something for which you have had no training, and he lost a great deal of money every year. He bought goods on speculation, and the bottom fell out of the market. He gambled his capital on mining investments and lost, and it was not long before his house was his only worldly possession. Eventually he sold this and the land for a mere 35 kanmei. The old man was deeply grieved, but his son took a foolish pride in the way he had managed things. So you guys can see that here's another example of kind of, he changed things and then lost it all. It's lucky I had the house improved when times were good, he said. It made it more valuable for selling. The father had worked for his fortune for 40 years, and the son had disposed of it in 6. Money, as can be seen, is made with difficulty and spent with ease. Never for one moment between waking and sleeping let your attention wander from the abacus. Never for one moment let it deviate from the abacus. Stare at the abacus as long as you're awake. The correct appearance for a shop differs according to type. If you are dealing in shark skin, books, perfumery, or silks, your shop should be decorated tastefully and have an air of spaciousness. But if you run a pawnbroker's or a grocery store, a cramped interior and a suggestion of disorder is more suitable. Moreover, in the words of a certain millionaire of great experience, long-established business premises with which customers have become familiar should never be enlarged and improved. The same concept was in the book The Millionaire Next Door. Particularly, it was speaking about a millionaire who had this old car. And he said, look, if I drove a really fancy car, my employees would think that I was ripping them off and taking all the money. So instead I'd drive, a more modest car so that they don't feel like I'm just consuming all the profits. I believe that it's difficult, especially when you're thinking about upgrading things in your life, to really forecast all of the impacts, especially for luxury things, that's going to have. So I think it's worth it, certainly, before you buy a nice car, before you buy really nice furniture. I've got these lard bags here. I've got these cats here, at least one lard bag, and they like jumping on furniture and they have claws. So if I, have a super nice luxury countertop, they're going to scratch it up, and so. Yeah, not the best thing for me to purchase. All right, so which customers have become familiar should never be enlarged and improved. Move to the next page. This young bean paste dealer now divorced the wife he had taken in Suruga and opened a small shop in a village near the coast. Finding that even here someone was needed to manage the household affairs, he chose a second wife from among the local women, and on a suitably propitious day he forwarded his betrothal presents to her home: 2 light sake casks, a pair of salted bream, and a string of 1,000 zenny. He had come to appreciate the wisdom of his father's remarks, made in happier days, on the present he had once shown him. Etiquette was a minor point. The essential thing, after all, was to understand how to make a living. All right, so the end of the story, it says, screw etiquette, make sure your financial affairs are in order, and I completely agree. The number one reason for divorce is money fights and money problems, and it would be far better to get married under modest circumstances and be in a strong financial position together than to get married and immediately have something to fight about. That is it for I believe video number 215. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope I can get maybe another cranked out tonight and catch up on some of these videos that I'm behind on. That I don't feel good about being behind on it, but it's cool. I'm getting it done. Have a fabulous Monday.